The Black Hawk was more shadow than machine against the bruised night sky, its matte skin swallowing moonlight. The ocean below looked like molten obsidian, every so often catching a glint of pale lightning far to the south. Inside the cramped troop bay, the air was warm and metallic, thick with the smell of oil, nylon straps, and the faint tang of ozone from the storm they were flying into. Captain Ryan Cole sat nearest the ramp, chin tucked, helmet tilted forward so that the red glow from the cabin lights painted a harsh arc across the visor of his night vision goggles. His gloved hands ran over his gear again. Body armor plates pressed against his ribs, the flex of his sidearm in its holster, the click of his M4's safety selector under his thumb. He wasn't nervous. Ritual just made the waiting tolerable. Across from him, Sergeant Marcus Vega had his demolitions bag strapped tight across his chest, looking for all the world like he'd rather be anywhere but sitting still. He rolled his shoulders once, adjusted his gloves, and then sat statue still again, his brown eyes locked on the floor. To Cole's left, Staff Sergeant Ortiz was tapping a magazine against his knee. Not hard enough to make a sound over the rotor noise, just a reflexive rhythm that said his mind was chewing through contingencies. He was the team's heavy gunner, the guy you wanted between you and trouble. Next to him was Corporal Jensen, the youngest in the group by 7 years. Fresh out of the pipeline and trying too hard not to show it, Jensen kept shifting his weight, every movement stiff. Cole had been him once, a kid on his first real black op, praying not to be the one to screw it up. On the opposite bench sat Corporal Nash and Specialist Webb, both quiet, both competent, both keeping their thoughts to themselves. Nash had the kind of 1,000-yard stare that didn't need a backstory, and Webb had been a corpsman before transferring into recon, and he carried himself like a man who'd seen a lot more blood than anyone should. Cole's calm earpiece crackled to life, the pilot's voice strained but calm. Viper 6, we're 10 clicks out. Storm cells tracking toward your LZ. Expect chop. Copy, Cole said, leaning toward the mic clipped to his vest. His voice was steady, deliberate. Team, eyes up. The helicopter banked slightly, the ocean's black expanse shifting in the viewports. A moment later, a jagged bolt of lightning split the horizon, turning the world into a stark black and white photograph. Waves like serrated teeth, spray whipping in sheets. In that frozen instant, Cole saw the coastline ahead, a smudge of darker shadow under the storm. Command's briefing replayed in his head like a mantra. Infiltrate Kane's coastal fortress. Retrieve the shipment intel. Exfil before dawn. If compromised, burn it. Simple on paper. Deadly in execution. Kane wasn't a petty warlord. He was ex-special forces with a private army of hard men who'd all been trained in the same brutal efficiency Cole had learned. And his fortress was a fortress in the old sense. Sheer seawalls, overlapping fire arcs, enough tech to make a drone operator blush. The helicopter's altitude dropped, and Cole's stomach did the same. Through the mist ahead, he caught sight of the planned landing zone, a narrow strip of beach between two ridges. Problem was, the ridges weren't empty. Floodlights swept across the tree line. Dark figures moved in the beams. Rifles glinted under the lightning. Patrol. Not part of the plan. Cole keyed his mic. Abort Alpha insertion. Go Bravo. Bravo meant water. Cold, black, churning water. And a swim long enough to burn your lungs before the real work even started. The pilot didn't waste time asking why. The Black Hawk skimmed lower, down to 20 feet above the waves. Rotor wash smashed the ocean into chaos. The green light snapped on. Cole went first, a smooth pivot off the ramp into the night. The impact was like hitting stone, icy, suffocating. Salt water flooded his nose, mouth, ears. He kicked up hard, breaking the surface into wind and rain. The others splashed in behind him, black shapes against the darker sea. They swam in staggered file, heads low, letting the swell hide them from shore. The current was strong, pushing them sideways, and twice Cole had to fight to stay on bearing. Salt water burned in his throat each time he mistimed a breath. He kept his eyes fixed on a darker shadow ahead, the overhang of the jungle where the beach met the trees. Boots scraped sand at last. Cole crawled forward on his belly, rifle up, scanning. Nothing moved but the shifting fronds. "Move," he whispered. The jungle swallowed them in seconds. The canopy overhead blotted out most of the storm, turning the world into a murky green under their night vision. Vega took point with the mine detector, the dish sweeping inches above the ground. The device was almost silent, just the faintest warble when it found trouble. Twice it did. The first was a tripwire, nearly invisible under the ferns. Vega's hands were steady as he cut and secured it. The second was worse, a pressure mine under a mat of wet leaves. He disarmed it without a word, but Cole saw the tightness in his jaw. Somewhere deep in the jungle, thunder rolled like distant artillery. Cole's mind flicked, unbidden, to another jungle years ago. Black Ridge. The name alone was enough to put a weight in his chest. He could still see the smoke, smell the blood, hear the staccato chatter of enemy rifles. He'd led 12 men into that valley. He'd walked out alone. The hiss of his comm pulled him back. No voice, just static. The storm could kill a signal, but so could deliberate jamming. Either way, they were cut off. Movement ahead. 3 enemy scouts, rifles slung, cutting across the trail. Cole dropped to a knee, raised a clenched fist. Vega and Ortiz dropped them with 2 muffled shots. The third man turned, eyes wide, breath pulling for a shout. But Cole was already there, knife flashing once, twice. The man sagged silently into the mud. They dragged the bodies into the undergrowth, masking the disturbance as best they could. No time to bury them. Then, trouble. The single flat crack of a rifle. A cry cut short. Jensen went down, leg twisted under him, blood already blooming in the fabric. Ortiz was there in a heartbeat. Through and through. Missed the artery, but he's not walking. Cole's brain ran the ugly math. Carry him, lose the window, leave him, risk the man. They wrapped him in a thermal blanket, camouflaging it with mud and leaves. Cole pressed a flare into his palm. 2 hours. If you see us, stay down. If you see the bird, pop it. Sir, that's an order. Cole forced himself to stand, forced himself